This is Tribe Company Culture, and we are in another video to continue to look at why modern CEOs need to understand where old company cultures came from and why they need a serious upgrade. This is part 2 of From Factory Lines to Creative Minds, the shift every modern leader needs to understand. So today, the old company culture model doesn't really work. We've established that, right? But as society is shifting, it's becoming increasingly obvious that people have been treated really poorly in the workplace. This impacts their ability to be effective in their jobs and is affecting their mental and physical health. The pandemic expedited the adoption of this perspective by showing us just how uninterested many companies are in taking care of the people who do the work to move the business forward, and how some so-called leaders are lacking basic leadership skills. So some employees realized this. They saw that they were in an optics culture. They saw that all the effort they were putting into the company was not really being rewarded by what the supposed leadership and company were supposed to be investing in the values. One way I personally saw this play out was when an organization leader gave like a word or theme of the year. For example, the theme of the year is collaboration. This seems like a nice idea, one that could enhance unity and give the opportunity for growth in company values. But what ultimately ended up happening is that the theme only got mentioned a handful of times and no actionable plan was really behind it. It sounded good, but there was just nothing of substance behind it. The leader was obviously just trying to make himself look good, or like he was trying to address culture issues, but there was no real positive outcomes for employees. The old culture models are inflexible and rely on a few people directing everything well. And with so many companies still stuck in the past, it's little wonder that there are so many more stories from the pandemic that indicate how command and control was not capable of supporting the needs of today's workforce, leading to the Great Resignation. On the slide, you can see that according to an article from MIT Sloan Management Review titled "Toxic Culture is Driving the Great Resignation," the leading predictor of turnover during mid-2021 was toxic company culture, at almost 3 times the rate of the next predictor for job security and reorganization. And what's really interesting, as you read on the slide, is that each bar indicates the level of importance of each topic for attrition relative to employee compensation. A toxic culture is 10.4 times more likely to contribute to attrition than compensation, which means that people value a good company culture 10 times more than when they look at just the compensation package. So some companies did do a really good job during the pandemic, helping their employees through such a challenging time, but it's pretty likely that they didn't just flip the script and developed these mindsets overnight that helped them to move into positive action, right? They likely already had an underlying culture that supported them in making decisions that prioritized their employees' well-beings. This is the essence of true company culture. It's a framework that can be used day to day and in decision making, just like a business plan directs overarching vision and the day-to-day operations. Before and through the pandemic, some companies have worked on creating intentional company culture and have seen the benefits. They did that by taking the time to decide what they wanted to commit to when it comes to how they want to treat their employees and what behaviors support that ethos. It takes some upfront investment, but it's very rewarding. In the same way that these leaders also understood that you can't just wing it. Even if the founders are nice people and plan on hiring other nice people, that isn't enough. A group of individual nice people doesn't make up a culture. For example, you can have a group of people with great intentions, but they each think what defines collaboration, that word from earlier, in a different way. Some think that it means that the subject matter experts still get the final say. Some will think that it means everyone gets an equal voice in all decisions. Some think that only the leadership team should make decisions, while others believe that more junior staff should have a voice in meetings. You can see that even the most well-meaning people may have invisible biases or values that cause conflict even when everyone involved is a nice person with good intentions. A culture is actually shared by all the individuals in the group. In order for a culture to be shared, it has to be clearly defined, out in the open, and a level of accountability enforced to ensure alignment. Part of the problem with assuming that great people will just figure out group dynamics on their own is that silly things happen that shouldn't. And that really shows a lack of good leadership. Great business leaders today understand the importance of cohesiveness. And people are only able to be cohesive and collaborate when they're working off the same understanding of how to work together. And how to work together is defined by company culture. Companies still operating under the old culture models are likely unaware of the large body of research that is available demonstrating that having great company culture gives clarity to expected and accepted behaviors and how that has a huge impact on business results. As mentioned in a previous video, people work better at mental tasks when they feel comfortable in their environment. Fear drives a wedge between skills and the ability to deliver on those skills. Why bother hiring brilliant people if you're not going to set them up in an environment where their brilliance can actually shine? Unfortunately, when employers have designed company cultures in the old way of thinking, they focused solely on efficiency and authority, thinking about how rules and robots can be set up so that environments don't really work for people. They would only work for a robot. Another major problem with undefined culture is the power struggles and games that come. Both of these perspectives miss the mark. Trying to make people behave like robots is intentional, but it's the wrong intention. Power struggles and games run rampant in companies that have no intentional culture keeping interactions collaborative. And just in case you do think that power games are a good motivator, you probably haven't considered how siloed this makes information and effort. There is a time and place for competitive spirit, but it should be out in the open with specific guidelines if you want it to actually be effective in moving your business forward. A lot more leaders are joining the workforce or creating companies, and they want to do things differently. Hopefully you are one of them. They believe in authenticity, work-life balance, the importance of mental health, the ability to be agile in a rapidly changing world. And these fundamentally clash with old company culture models, which is why there's such a huge opportunity for leaders like you to approach company culture as an integral part of your business. Not an afterthought, not something that only gets talked about in the values section of your company website or something just runs wild until you realize what a big issue you're having with no cohesion between the people in your company, or something that only gets talked about during an offsite once a year. In the next video with Sheldon, you will be able to see clearly how a well-designed company culture benefits your business and the people who work for your company.